So once again, thank you all very much. This is Zena Hassel from ZLH Enterprises. We are happy to bring to you today the first in a series of SD-WAN, peeling back the onion, trying to demystify the SD-WAN nomenclature for folks in the industry. Everyone has their own brand of SD-WAN, and we're happy to now work with Masergy on their product. We have Chris Castaldo is on the line, who is the solutions engineer. Scott Rubinson is with us as well from a broader scheme. We work with Scott in order to develop the go-to-market solutions with Chris for the clients. Chris, at this point, why don't you go ahead and begin the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and looking forward to talking with you today about SD-WAN in general, and more specifically Masergy's SD-WAN offering. So before we get right into SD-WAN, I did want to kind of take a step back, talk about how did we get to SD-WAN, and how do we really address SD-WAN with customers and clients. First and foremost, when you're engaging with Masergy with your clients, we do take a pretty standardized approach to our network design methodology. This isn't something we made up. This is pretty much industry standard in terms of, what steps should be taken when engaging with clients and really trying to design a network for their business environment. Really simple approach. There's really 3 stages to our design methodology. First and foremost is a discovery and risk assessment stage, and we at Masergy consider this really a vital part of the process, because this is where we get to understand what the customer's networking environment today looks like, what issues are they experiencing today, and what's driving them towards maybe making a change to their current networking environment. Once we gather all this information, we then start moving into the design phase. And for us, really, it's a custom design phase, because we're not a cookie cutter provider. We look to match really specific designs to specific customer requirements. And within that custom design, you can see there that we have a lot of different products and services that we can utilize to design a network that are going to meet client needs. The last part of the next stage, the third stage in this methodology, is implementation, management, and adaptation. So that's where we've built a design. Now we start going into installing circuits, configuring services, things like that. Then we get into steady state, where we're managing the design, and then finally adaptation. Technology changes, even when customers install services. Technologies change, their business environments change, so we're constantly adapting to that ever-changing environment that we see within our customers. As I mentioned before, really the key in that discovery phase is getting an understanding of our customer applications. And really, we find that the applications drive the design. So what is it that is important to customers? Are they, more focused on cloud-based applications? Do they do a lot of work in-house? Are they running a lot of voice, video, real-time applications, Citrix type applications? From a business perspective, what type of CRM, ERP apps are they using? So we want to get an understanding of that, and that's really key, and that it's the applications that you're going to see are always going to drive the network design. So once we've we've collected our information, we've got an understanding of what the customer environment looks like, business requirements, and we've developed an application profile. We start looking at, okay, now let's start developing, designing a network. And typically, I would say in all instances, we're going to be utilizing hybrid networking techniques to deliver a solution. And what that means is one network service circuits may not fit all. Customer environments are pretty diverse. You've got data centers, you've got large offices, you have small offices, offices with 50 to 100 people, offices with 1 to 2 people. So what hybrid networking does, it allows us to develop a network that meets the needs of specific offices and data centers within a customer environment by being able to combine different circuits and technologies, as well as different types of VPNs, whether it be MPLS, internet, etc. So the basis of our hybrid networking, of the Masergy hybrid networking portfolio really is our core network, which is, you see here as the Masergy software-defined platform. This is our global IP MPLS network. That's the basis for delivering hybrid networking services from a standpoint of layer 2, layer 3 VPNs, as well as SD-WAN services. On top of that, we would also add managed network functions, routers, firewalls, etc. And the last piece of the puzzle for hybrid networking is being able to support multiple different types of access options from the standpoint of, dedicated point-to-point access for, offices and sites that require a little bit higher performance, down to, dedicated internet access or broadband internet as well. So on top of that, you can see here, once in a hybrid network environment, I did mention cloud services. There is an on-ramp to cloud services such as AWS and Azure. In addition, another piece that's not shown here is potentially an on-ramp to unified communication services. Scott, I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit, or if you want me to give an overview.
Well, let me jump in. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so we really like this graphic. It kind of illustrates the SD-WAN 101 as far as how we look at SD-WAN in kind of an analogy form. So what I like to do is, when I first started learning about SD-WAN, and I'm an old school telecom guy, I've been around since the late 90s, and you've gone through a lot of technology changes. And when you start to hear new technologies, you always like to think, well, how does this compare, and what does this mean versus what we're trying to take the place of, right? What is that next generation functionality versus what we had? And you don't really have to look any further than the way we've traveled from one place to another on a road. Back in the point-to-point days, you had a Hagstrom map. It was a hard-coded plan. It was a site-to-site where you highlighted it on the map. If you hit some sort of road closure, you had to redo it as a manual reroute. There was no automation involved in it. And, over time, we got to a point where we started seeing site-to-site networking like MPLS, as we all kind of know and love, right? That's when you bought your TomTom or your Garmin, where you had a defined route, and you did have some failover capabilities. You could avoid a road if you wanted to, and then that TomTom or Garmin would sort of manually reroute on an as-needed basis as you got to some congestion. And we lived with that TomTom and that Garmin for really quite a long time, right? We bought them in the early 2000s, and we lasted almost a decade with those. And now all of a sudden you fast forward to how SD-WAN translates, and it's Google Maps and Waze, right? It's forward-looking. It's looking at that entire route and saying, what's my optimal path to get from point A to point B? I don't want any manual reroutes along the way. I don't want any maps that I need to highlight on. I want to always be looking at my optimal path based on multiple available paths that are in that destination plan, right? So when you're looking at SD-WAN, it works exactly like that. It's saying, here's my 2 data paths that I have available on an individual application basis. I want to look at my best, most optimal path with the ability to adjust along the way. And you know, I really think that once I learned that kind of analogy, and I said, okay, point-to-point, tom-tom ways, it started all making sense. And as we get into these SD-WAN discussions, we really like to look at that evolution and how, you know, how it's really paralleled what's gone on in the navigation system world. So I appreciate letting me jump in there, Chris. But I like to throw that analogy out there so that we can have that visual as we're talking going forward.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it is important. It kind of simplifies SD-WAN in a non-technical sense, which is really the point of this slide. And hopefully, and really, I mean, when you're talking about, you know, data networking, it's no different than driving your car. You know, in a data network, you've got packets. In real life, you've got your car and roads. You know, so it's a very good analogy, and hopefully that clarified a little bit more really what SD-WAN is compared to traditional networking. Getting into the more technical definition of SD-WAN, really from a simple perspective, it's a technology that utilizes software-defined networking technology to automatically determine the most effective way to route your traffic. As Scott mentioned, that's no different than what Waze and Google Maps does. It's going to look ahead to see if there's any accidents along your route between point A and point B. Is there congestion? And if there is, it's going to automatically adjust your path based on changes that are going to happen as you're traveling from point A to point B. That's exactly how SD-WAN works in a data networking world. You've got locations, you know, say New York, LA, London, and anytime you're sending traffic between those locations, there's different routes that traffic could take in an SD-WAN environment. At any given moment, one path may see higher congestion than the other. You might start seeing some performance degradation. And the benefit of an SD-WAN is that it will reroute your traffic around those issues to ensure that you're always going to be taking the highest performing path when you're sending traffic between your locations. As far as, you know, what defines an SD-WAN, you know, this is from Gartner. They say that an SD-WAN is defined by 4 specific characteristics. First and foremost, an SD-WAN must support multiple connection types. The most common SD-WAN we see are going to be, you know, 2 circuits coming into each location. Those circuits could be, you know, MPLS, private IP, internet, 4G, 5G, wireless, etc. But typically, it's a minimum of 2 connections. Sometimes you will see 3, you know, a private, a public connection, and a wireless, some type of 4G wireless connection. And again, with those connections, it is configured in an active state so that at any given moment, whatever's going on in the core transport networks, you're going to always be able to utilize the most optimum path when routing traffic between sites. And that goes into the next characteristic, can do dynamic path selection. So that is where, again, the SD-WAN is deciding on, based on parameters that you set for packet loss, latency, and jitter, it's going to choose the best path to route your traffic between locations. The next characteristic is a simple interface, management interface. It shouldn't be complicated, right? It should support zero-touch provisioning, where we can ship out a box, connect it to your network, and then start automatically dropping a configuration to it. It should be as simple as setting up your home Wi-Fi network. And I put that in there. I thought it was kind of funny because I know sometimes that even setting up your home Wi-Fi network can be difficult depending on certain variables. But in essence, it really integrating an SD-WAN should be a lot simpler than implementing, you know, a traditional wide area network. And lastly, support for multiple types of virtual private networks. And that really comes down to, typically, and all SD-WANs do, they'll support, you know, MPLS networks in the core, internet, IPsec VPNs, etc. So an SD-WAN definitely does support multiple types of virtual private networks. So what does Masergy SD-WAN do for you specifically? First and foremost, really, what a Masergy SD-WAN does is it offers different benefits to different customers. Again, you can see here, there's a list of the benefits that that Masergy SD-WAN offers. Some benefits may be more important to certain customers than others. You know, some customers may be more cost conscious and are looking to utilize SD-WAN for cost efficiencies, while other customers may be looking at SD-WAN to achieve a better reliability and better application performance. Still, you might be looking, you know, customers may have invested in certain technologies and they want to ensure that an SD-WAN is interoperable with what they've got in their current networking environment. Ultimately, really, you know, how customers can benefit from a Masergy SD-WAN is moving to a more dynamic network architecture than what is in place today. Getting deeper now into what the Masergy SD-WAN offerings are. Masergy does have two different SD-WAN offerings. One is called SD-WAN Go and one is called SD-WAN Pro. Key difference is really the CPE that's utilized for each, and how the SD-WAN tunnels are built. For all, you know, both solutions offer active-active network configurations where they're going to utilize all the bandwidth that's coming into a site between circuits. They all support centralized policy and configuration management, application-based routing, and also WAN optimization. The key difference, though, between an SD-WAN Go network and SD-WAN Pro is really how the sites are interconnected. SD-WAN Pro is your typical SD-WAN that really considers the core networks as a transport network only. They're basically agnostic. So you lose some of the inherent benefits sometimes that the core network can bring to you, because all you're doing is tunneling through those networks. And it could be, you know, that could be a private MPLS network, it could be an internet network. But basically what you're doing in an SD-WAN Pro environment is building a site-to-site SD-WAN, you know, site-to-site SD-WAN network, bypassing really whatever core transports are there that's being used for the SD-WAN. With SD-WAN Go, and this is really specific to Masergy. So the Pro is what you see most of the time out there in the general industry. SD-WAN Go is more a Masergy specifically branded SD-WAN, where we're utilizing, again, different technologies. It could be dedicated access, internet access, but instead of a site-to-site SD-WAN, we're utilizing SD-WAN as a means, as a site to our core global IP MPLS network. And there are some inherent benefits to doing that, which I will get into in a second. But one of the things, too, that you gain from that with the SD-WAN Go is secure internet offload. In most cases, whether you're doing, you know, a private circuit and an internet circuit or two internet circuits at a site, a lot of customers want to utilize those internet circuits, right, for local internet. With the Pro solution, I need multiple boxes. I need two devices. I need one piece of CPE for SD-WAN and a second firewall. Key benefit for SD-WAN Go is that I can put one device that does SD-WAN functionality, WAN optimization, and local firewalling all in one piece of equipment. And the other key glaring difference is the ability to utilize our portal for self-provisioning of SD-WAN Go services. So again, when speed to market is important, being able to order services and turn up services quickly is a key feature of the SD-WAN Go solution. Talking about, again, why would a client want to utilize SD-WAN Go versus Pro? So typically what I'll see in the SD-WAN Pro environment, you know, customers are more interested in just getting, traffic from site A to site B. They've got, they host a lot of applications in their own data centers. They're not too embedded into cloud services, at least not at the moment. So they're not using AWS Azure. They keep a lot of things in-house. So they don't really need the benefits maybe of a core network to virtualize their business environment. Again, with the Masergy core network, we allow our customers to create multiple virtual environments that really help organize their business. Some companies are simple. They just say, I just need one network, and that's it. But a lot of customers that we talk to like the fact that they can virtualize their business environment so that it's easier to manage. They can create a corporate network. Maybe they're a sales organization, so they want to maybe build some type of client network or, partner network, things like that. They want to build a network, and these are virtual network environments between data centers. You can see a list of it there, a network for guest Wi-Fi, because they want to keep that separate from their important corporate traffic. And by utilizing SD-WAN Go, you can actually get the benefits of SD-WAN into the core network and still be able to separate your business environment into these multiple virtual networks. So that's one of the benefits that is brought to that SD-WAN Go brings to the table. The next few slides kind of show a little bit of how the two networks are connected. So there's two types for both Go and Pro. You can do a hybrid network or an internet-only network. With SD-WAN Go, what you're seeing here is a hybrid SD-WAN Go network where a site would have two circuits, one being a Masergy private circuit connecting to the core Masergy network, and the other circuit being an internet circuit. And again, even in this environment, bandwidth is utilized on both circuits, and application-based routing is going to determine which path to take at any given moment between the branch office and the core network. And another benefit here is that, so once you do hit the Masergy core cloud, now you have the benefit of direct access to cloud services like AWS and Azure and the unified communications platform. You can also utilize, just internet access as your method of access to the network. And in each case, I want to point out with SD-WAN Go, whether you're utilizing a dedicated circuit or an internet circuit, we're building this, what I'll call an SD-WAN tunnel. It is an IPsec tunnel, but I'll refer to it as an SD-WAN tunnel from this device that you see here, this SD-WAN Go CPE device, to the Masergy core network. And all we're doing is utilizing either a point-to-point circuit for access or using internet as an access method. And again, there would be different reasons for customers choosing an internet circuit over a dedicated circuit. And typically it's going to depend upon, again, how large is the site, how important is, performance and things like that. So there's different factors that are used to determine what type of access should be done at each location. And I do want to point out, you don't have to have the network. Again, we're talking about hybrid networking, and that terminology applies to SD-WAN. Some sites you could have, an MPLS or a private IP circuit and an internet circuit. Other sites you could have two internet circuits. So that's the benefit of SD-WAN, is it's not a one-size-fits all. With the Pro solution, we again, this is where you can see here, we're now, instead of relying on the core network and for transport, we're just building with SD-WAN Pro, you're building end-to-end SD-WAN tunnels. Instead of a tunnel from the site to the core, these tunnels are built end-to-end from each site to each other site. And there are a lot of benefits there. And again, for customers that are not doing a lot of cloud services, that are keeping things in-house, this is a great solution. And again, it gives them all the bells and whistles of SD-WAN, forward error correction, application-based routing, WAN optimization, things like that. I do want to point out, though, that you still do with the SD-WAN Pro solution, you still do have access to cloud services like AWS Azure and the Unified Communications Network. The Pro, the hybrid solution, again, is one circuit being a private dedicated circuit, the other being an internet circuit. We can also do internet only, where both circuits are internet circuits coming into the site. The last thing I want to talk about here is really what, we talked about hybrid networking, we talked about, SD-WAN in general, more specifically Masergy's SD-WAN solutions. But what is the driving technology behind SD-WAN? And really the secret sauce for an SD-WAN really is something called path conditioning or forward error correction, as many of you may be more familiar with. And this goes to what Scott mentioned when he was talking, talking about Google Maps and Waze. It's forward error correction, forward looking, that's what an SD-WAN does. It's going to utilize this technology called forward error correction to see what's going on, in the core, what's happening between point A and point B. If I'm seeing congestion along one path, I'm going to reroute traffic to the other. If I'm starting to see packet loss in one path or a path go down, I'm going to automatically reroute to the other. And even in there, and even in a degraded state, forward error correction helps, because it's going to say, okay, if I do lose some packets, forward error correction is going to allow me to rebuild the data that I sent from point A to point B without having to resend it, because every time you resend it, you start generating more noise, and then that could impact application performance. The other part of an SD-WAN, and not always, and I do want to point out, it's not true for every SD-WAN out there, but with Masergy for both Go and Pro, we do support WAN optimization on both platforms. And really, where WAN optimization is a big benefit is for high latency transport. So more so if you're trying to send traffic from the US to Asia, where you have high latency, where you want to ensure that you don't have to retransmit packets, because if you do, you're going to start seeing some degradation. But basically what WAN optimization does, it mitigates latency through TCP acceleration, data compression, and deduplication. And simply put, what that means is instead of sending, so if you've got users in an office, pulling information from a data center, if like 5 users are pulling similar information, instead of sending 5 streams of data to each user at the end site, it's only going to send 1 stream of data across the network and then duplicate that data when it gets to its destination. So it alleviates the amount of traffic that's going to be sent across the network, which alleviates bandwidth utilization, which in the end run is just going to improve application performance, and you're going to have happier end users when they're trying to access their corporate applications. So I talked about it a little bit throughout the presentation, typical use case. But basically, again, when you're talking to your customers, SD-WAN Go versus SD-WAN Pro, it's really going to depend upon each specific environment, as I mentioned, and it's not a clear-cut delineation. If you've got a customer that does a lot of cloud applications, it doesn't mean they can't use SD-WAN Pro. They can, or if you've got customers that are more data centric, like internal, doesn't mean they can't use SD-WAN Go. Again, the key for us when determining which is the best technology to propose is really understanding your end customer and really what's going to drive them. One of the big differences between the two that we might end up seeing is going back to some of the benefits, is those cost efficiencies. Typically, we'll see better cost efficiencies with SD-WAN Go versus SD-WAN Pro. And again, in an environment where customers want features like local internet offload and things like that, Go may be a better option. So again, it's really to determine what might be the best solution for a customer. is really going to depend. It's going to depend upon the customer. It's going to depend upon their requirements and what they're comfortable with. But I think the key benefit for us is that we have options. We don't have just a single option. We have, two options that we can present to a customer and maybe have them make the choice in terms of which direction they want to go. So that's, really it. I want to take a break here and open it up for questions and feedback, if that's okay.
Yeah, hi, Chris, this is Zena. I think that we had a few questions that had come in while you were speaking.
Okay.
One of them, and you may have touched on it already, if the customer already has an ISP connection, presumably Masergy would be looking to just add the MPLS circuit for security is the question.
So where is that? Oh, if we already have ISP services, would Masergy add the MPLS circuit for the security? So I'm not sure I'm fully understanding that. So again, when we're looking at, I'll try to take a step back. So if we're looking at SD-WAN, as I mentioned, one of the key elements of SD-WAN is having multiple circuits. So if one of the circuits is if they already have internet access, again, that can be utilized for the SD-WAN. Internet can be bring your own bandwidth, or it can be provided by Masergy. So if it's already there, I fully recommend the customer using that internet circuit. As the second circuit for the SD-WAN, again, Masergy can deliver either an MPLS circuit, or we can utilize a second internet circuit. From a security perspective, if we're addressing security, in both cases, we will it's not more about security than more about performance. So again, with an MPLS circuit, I'm guaranteeing performance all the way down to the customer site from a standpoint of latency, packet loss, and jitter. With an internet circuit, I don't guarantee those parameters, but I am securing that circuit. So in each case, whether it be Pro or Go, we're creating an IPsec tunnel across both circuits, which is going to provide a high level of security. So even if so, from an MPLS standpoint, why you would use MPLS over an internet circuit typically is if you've got a lot of like real-time applications, say voice, video, maybe you're doing some multicasting, things like that. That's where I would recommend utilizing an MPLS circuit, because you're going to have predictable performance all the time with that circuit. But either case, whether I drop MPLS or internet, I'm going to provide a level of security because I'm always going to be configuring IPsec tunnels across those circuits to build the SD-WAN. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that went towards it.
Hey, Chris, another question that just came in. I'm a pretty small business with only one location, but with a lot of people in the field. Can SD-WAN help me with the mobile team?
Say that again?
I'm a pretty small business with only one location, but I have a lot of people in the field. Can SD-WAN help me with the mobile team, meaning mobile users, it sounds like?
So SD-WAN, again, is exactly what it is. It's typically a technology you use to route traffic between, two sites, just like point A to point B. If you have a single site, first and foremost, you can utilize SD-WAN. A big benefit of SD-WAN for supporting the mobile team is the WAN optimization feature. So you can gain benefits through the deployment of SD-WAN just by turning on the WAN optimization. And how it would benefit the mobile team is really going to depend upon what that endpoint is. If it's users coming in, utilizing it for cloud services, like if things are hosted within AWS or Azure, then yes, SD-WAN may be, would be beneficial or could provide benefits. If not, honestly, I think we would have to dig deeper to understand what that mobile team looks like. Because again, from an SD-WAN perspective, it's typically 2 sites that would really benefit the most, because when you'd be sending traffic between site A and site B. So I guess if it's a mobile team, if they're in small offices, or if they're coming from home, we can definitely look at that in more detail and look and see if we can design a network that would be beneficial. I couldn't say yes or no right now without, again, digging deeper into what that environment looks like. So I would say that it is possible, but I don't want to say for sure that it's going to benefit all environments where there is only a single circuit, but it can potentially have benefits. We just would have to take a deeper look into it.
Thank you. One last question. What would you say are the key differentiators between Masergy's product and some other carriers or providers that are out there in the marketplace now for the SD-WAN?
Would you like, Scott, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer that?
You go for it, Chris. And we actually did just have one other question come in. So go for that first, and then we can, then I'll take I'll read you the last question.
So sure. So some of the key differentiators of SD-WAN, and first I'll go through, from a standpoint of SD-WAN Go, really the key differentiator is our core network. So, Masergy's built a global IP MPLS network from the ground up, and it was built, again, it is a software-defined network that allows for a lot of, add-ons and benefits to our customers, such as visibility and control, the ability to bump up bandwidth on demand and things like that, and as well as more recently direct access to cloud services like AWS and Azure, UCaaS, being able to do native multicasting, things like that. So from an SD-WAN Go perspective, being able to utilize SD-WAN to tie into that core network and take advantages of our core network differentiators, for me, is a big differentiator in the community. Not all SD-WAN services have their own. Not all SD-WAN service providers have a core IP MPLS network that they can utilize and tout as a differentiator. Another thing too is we are not vendor agnostic, meaning, well, there's no vendor lock-in. So again, from a Masergy managed SD-WAN, you're buying a service. Yes, we are using some specific technology today. Our SD-WAN Pro is based on Silver Peak Edge Connect. But again, we don't look at it as an equipment solution. It's a managed solution, and we're always looking at potentially upgrades and better options out there. So we don't lock in our customers to specific equipment. We're selling a service, and if we see that, hey, there's other equipment that comes out in the next couple of years that are going to be more beneficial, we will swap that equipment out to make sure that we are always providing state-of-the-art SD-WAN services to our customers.
Great, thanks, Chris. We had 2 more questions come in, but they're actually similar, so I'm going to read you them both. And actually, I think they'll kind of funnel right into those portal view slides that you had ready. So sure. Question 1, does the SD-WAN solution offer extensive network level and application level visibility and reporting? And question 2, which is again very similar, what are my options for managing and monitoring the network? So I think that should lend right into the last part that you wanted to talk about anyway.
Yeah, so again, so that's actually the next slides will basically answer that question regarding the visibility down to the application layer that you would have with the SD-WAN solutions. First and foremost, for both solutions, whether it be SD-WAN Go or Pro, you have a level of access to the Masergy, you have access to the Masergy portal. That's the Intelligent Service Control portal. And in this portal, you'll see an inventory of circuits, of all your sites, your circuits, how they're configured and things like that. But in addition, there's an added feature called Network Analyst, Intelligent Network Analyst, giving you a deeper dive into your traffic that you're sending across the network. And this is applicable, these reports are applicable to SD-WAN Go. So through the Intelligent Network Analyst, you can get down and see, look at application utilization. You can look at top talkers between locations. And this can be done in real time, like, currently you go back, you look the last hour, last day, or go back 30 days and see what was happening on your network. And, it's a very good tool for troubleshooting. So you could see, hey, are there any specific applications that caused high utilization, a week ago that impacted some of my users at a specific site. So this level of reporting would be available to you through the SD-WAN Go service. In addition, you can look at, QoS utilization, which is important, and then overall traffic utilization on your circuits. So yes, this is a level of visibility that you would get with the SD-WAN Go solution. When we go into the SD-WAN Pro, the reports are a little bit different than what you would get with Go. You'll see here, these are what we currently have today. There are additional reports that are in the works that are going to, again, provide even more information. But you have, there's a topology report, which would show, again, if it's green, it'll show that, tunnels are up. If they're browned out, meaning they're up, but there's either high congestion or high latency, high jitter across a circuit. So they're put in a brownout mode or they're down. So this gives you a good view in terms of your entire network and what each of the paths look like at any given moment. You've got an equipment inventory view, so it's going to show you by site what equipment is there, and as well as IP addressing for that equipment on those transport tunnels. You'd be able to look and see all of your SD-WAN tunnels that are in the network, whether they're up, down, active, and what transport they're using, whether it be transport 1, which could be MPLS, transport 2 could be internet. Another report available with the SD-WAN Pro is the business policy report. This is where you define how you want your traffic routed across the network. So, for instance, there's 6 business policies, ranging from voice, video, critical, priority, normal, and limited. And those business policies apply to both SD-WAN Go and SD-WAN Pro. You could decide to, you could specify if you're looking at more of if this should be in a hub-spoke configuration. So again, you may have a data-centric network where everything comes to the data center, so there's not a lot of communication between offices, or you might want a fully meshed network where you do have a lot of communication office to office. And then you have to decide what level of forward error correction you're looking to do, one-to-one or adaptive. You want to do best path or load balance traffic between circuits, things like that. All that gets defined here on the business policy page. And then finally, you've got a nice report here that will show you, just like with the SD-WAN Go, a top applications report. So it's going to show you what applications are running across the network, how much bandwidth utilization, and also will show you, if you've got WAN optimization turned on, how much bandwidth are you saving by using that WAN optimization. So a lot of different reports. There are more in the works, but yeah, we do try to give as much visibility into your network as possible. Any additional questions on the reporting?
No, thank you very much, Chris. I think that is a terrific portal, and the reports that are available are very helpful and top-notch. I don't see that there are any other questions from any participants, So what I would like to do at this point is thank everyone for their participation in this webinar, to thank you particularly and Scott Rubinson for pulling things together on this peeling back the onion, unraveling the SD-WAN networking. If there are any questions that folks have after this, please feel free to send your comments to info@zlhent.com, and we will make sure to have prompt answers. And we will also be sending out a link to the recording for those that are interested.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and have a great day.